class today. Welcome to our Sunday morning class with Guy Finley. Welcome to our in-person audience and to our online audience as well. Glad you could join us today. Our format for today is that in just a moment, Guy is going to come on and give an hour-long talk. We'll have a short break and we'll come back for an open Q&A discussion with everybody, those in the room and you online as well. And I'll tell you later how you can participate in that. For our online audience, if you have any tech issues during the live stream, you can reach out to us in the question box or the chat area, depending on what platform you're on. You can send an email to support@guyfinley.org, and that comes to me, and I'll help you. For our in-person audience, if you brought a cell phone into the room with you, if you could just check it really quick and make sure that it's off or in silent mode. And I'm going to read the topic and the key lesson for today, but before I do, I want to let you know that this is kind of a special week for us here at Life of Learning. This coming weekend, starting on Friday, June 23rd, we are going to have our Weekend of Wisdom, which is 4 times a year. We have a special weekend where Guy gives talks on a particular topic, and we have people visit from all over, and we have talks with Guy on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll be telling you more about that actually after his talk before we start our Q&A. But I wanted to let you know that Guy asked me to tell everyone that this coming Wednesday, he's considering that to be sort of his official intro talk to that Weekend of Wisdom. So you want to make sure that you tune in for that. And I'll also tell you that if you're not, how you can get a hold of the replay package for that if you're not able to join us. But just wanted to let you know that up front so that you can join us again on Wednesday if you're able. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The topic for today is the never-ending story of your true self. Here's the key lesson that Guy wrote. The real joy of a quiet mind is the realization of just how soul-stirring real life can be without having to identify with anything moving into and through it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're joining us from wherever you are, whatever day or time it may be. Increasingly, I can tell you that you're in a good place. And if you're willing and you listen, there is much you can learn that will solve some of the mystery of your life. I see sometimes more than I wish, even amongst my own students, men and women who are just trudging along. What a sad life it is to trudge along, get through another day, hope you can craft or create something that's going to take the drudgery out of your existence, all that I have to deal with, all the problems there are, everything behind me, everything ahead of me. I can't do anything more than tell you you don't know what a terrible mistake you are participating in. It's not your mistake. Humanity is mistaken. What's become of humanity is a mistake. Even though for those who understand and see through it, it becomes a correction, which is what these meetings are about. They're not here to tell you what a wonderful person you are, how your future is light and bright and full of gaiety, more like full of a guillotine. The never-ending experience of something coming to an end again, and then hoping somehow that even though that happened, if I just trudge along a little bit further, things will work out. Things are not going to work out. No one will tell you that because everybody wants your money or your approval. Fortunately, I don't want either. That's my blessing. May it become yours. Just before the meeting started, actually about an hour ago, I sent Kate and Eric a second key lesson, and I just wrote a third they don't have yet. I trust that someone will capture it, it'll go up. I want to start our meeting with what is now the second key lesson, and the one I sent earlier will be the third one. Nice deep breath. Before I read it, I imagine, do you recall how it feels to you when you hear things that on one hand tweak your interest? You go, that's cool, I like that. But then when you try to drill down, you go, what the heck is that talking about? I hate things like that because they seem to make a strange circle. But when you try to get back round to understanding it, you find yourself beneath that which you have read or heard and trying to figure out, how do I get my mind around that? Isn't that true? Aren't we always trying to get our mind wrapped around something? Well, forget about it. You're not meant to get your mind wrapped around anything. The problem is your mind is wrapped tighter than a $2 burrito with nothing but junk inside of it, and you don't know that's the truth. That's why we have these classes. Aren't you glad you're here today? Here's the key lesson. Second key lesson. What you're looking for, you cannot find. But when you find that out, you will realize what you've been looking for all along. What you're looking for, you can't find, but when you find that out, you will realize what you've been looking for all along. One of those maddening things, isn't it? Let's see. What do you mean I can't find what I'm looking for? But when I find that out, I'll find what I've been looking for all along? Do you know that story is written in every scripture that was ever put into any form of language? That's the description of the prodigal son, isn't it? I'm looking for what I can't find. I go out into this world. I'm dutiful. I do everything. I kill myself trying to be this and match that and get there and finish this. Do it so I look like what I want people to see me looking like. Spend endless hours, money, investing in a story that I think at last will be the one that will bring me to the glorious happy ending. Scarf in the wind, bright shiny teeth, perfect person by my side in a $100,000 Porsche convertible. I don't know what $100,000. I just wanted to express something very expensive. He goes out, he does everything. But he finds himself doing what, that prodigal son? Does he find what he's looking for? Or does he find himself having nothing? He has less to eat than a pig. And he would give his life just to have what a pig has to eat. So he can't find it. And what happens when he can't find it? He finds it. He realizes, I've been in the wrong world, doing the wrong thing, looking for all of the wrong things that I hope to find there. And I don't know why in the name of God it took so long to understand that I started out with the wrong story. But I didn't know it was the wrong story. It was the only story I knew. Because it was the only story that my mind kept writing given the conditions that my mind told me were intolerable. I have to go into this world and make something special of myself. I have to have special things. I have to be seen in a special light. And it doesn't matter that I have to spend my entire existence and all of my God-given energy in the pursuit of what ultimately never provides real security for me, but I'm going to keep doing it anyway. I'm going to keep trudging through life. Do you know it doesn't matter at what age you find that out, I would add. Because when you understand what we're going to look at today, and God willing, I'll be able to communicate it to you. Some things are more difficult to say because they start out with ideas like what you're looking for you can't find, but when you find that out, you'll find what you're looking for. That's just one of those maddening things. So let's get into trouble. Ready? Nice deep breath, those of you who are still with me out there. So here's a story. Brother and a sister. And she comes to see him, from out of town, maybe once every 3-4 months. They're very close. Good relationship. And pretty much every time she visits him, it's kind of the same story. Because she'll walk into his home, and there lined on all of these shelves are stacks and reams of paper and stuff pinned to the wall. Actually sounds like my house. Notes scattered everywhere on the floor. And she hates to visit because she knows that if she touches anything, right, honey? She knows if she touches anything, it's going to mess with his absolutely chaotic order of things. But she loves her brother, and so she goes. Finally, one day she decides to say something to him because, you see, he's an author. And she says to him, Stan, as good as any other name. If I use a name that I know, one of my students, they take these things personally. Stan, if memory serves me properly, you started the idea for this book, 20, 30 years ago? Yep, he said. And I know, because I know you've never stopped working on it, because when I call you, I can see you've got pen in hand, and when we FaceTime, you're ever occupied. And I know you burn the midnight oil. No one would ever accuse you of being lazy, if by any extent, any stretch of the imagination. But what's going on? And I'm not rushing you, 30 years, for whatever it is, but honestly, Stan, when are you going to be done? And he looks at her and he says, I've been dealing with that question myself. Because I have to say at this point, I just don't know. I mean, to tell you the truth, I'm beginning to have doubts about this whole thing like I've never experienced before. What? All that work? Why? He said, because each time I write, because believe me, I've gotten to where I'm at the last chapter. Each time I write the last chapter of the book, I realize it's not. Stan, I don't understand. What are you talking about? I have to keep writing. Well, if you're the one writing and imagining the book, why in the world can't you just imagine and write the last chapter? He said, you don't understand. What don't I understand? What's wrong with the last chapter you have right now? And he looked at her and he said, I don't like how it ends. I never like how it ends. And I've been writing it for, I know you think 30 years. It feels like I've been writing this for 10,000 years. And I never come to the end of a chapter at the end of that story that I feel is the end. It's always got a problem. There's always something that isn't complete. There's always something that seems to be missing, and I can't write it. Well, she said, what are you going to do? Because in her own way, she's hoping that Stan becomes like a Nobel Peace winner, because then she can stand on the stage with him and said, it looked like I did this. What are you going to do? And he looked at her and he said, I'm working on it. He said, but there's something I dread more than I can say, because I'm not sure how to accomplish it. What? I realize now that if I want to have the ending that I'm looking for, I'm going to have to write a new beginning. The hero has to have a new beginning. The story is structured the way it starts out. Everything about him, all of his choices, everything predicated on his past, everything that leads him to every action he takes. The only way this book is going to have a happy ending for the hero in it is that it has to have a new start. Isn't that the story of the prodigal son? See, I'm trying to express something to you that actually can't be expressed in words, just like the key lesson that I read to you, the first one, second one, third one, second one. What do you think I'm talking about? So let's pull back a little bit and let me ask you a couple questions. First of all, how many of you know that every time you come to whatever the last chapter is, and I'm not talking about your death, you better come up with a new beginning before you get to the ending. I can tell you that. So I'm not talking about the last chapter where you're laying in bed, as most human beings do, wondering why in the name of God this chapter is closed and is closing on them, and they know that the book wasn't written properly, that it never had what it was intended to have. And when I say things like that, I can feel it all over the world. Don't talk about stuff like that. Don't remind me that the story I've written and continue to write doesn't work. Because I have hope in my last chapter. Don't I? Isn't that what the mind does all day long? If you can follow the metaphor? Metaphor, analogy, blah, 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 blah. If you can follow it. I'm at home. And I'm looking at my email. I'm looking at where I got to go to work. I'm looking at my children. I'm looking at these I'm always looking. Something's always getting my attention. Doesn't it get your attention? And when I look at it, do I go, oh my God, that's fantastic? 1 out of 100 times, maybe? Mostly I go, oh my God, and it stops there. And why does it stop there as a rule? Who can tell me why? It isn't the way I've written it. That's not supposed to be like that. I mean, in the name of God, why did she have to say that? Why do they have to do these things? Why is this taking so damn long? Why can't you be other than you are? Because you see, in the chapter I wrote, you finally see that I was right. And you come back to me on your knees begging for me to take you back. Fill in the blanks. You all know what I'm talking about. I come to the last chapter, and the hero's still afraid. The hero's still anxious. The hero's still trying to figure out in desperation how to make everything that came before the end pay out in such a way that the end now makes sense and was all worthwhile. You know the only thing that's worthwhile in a human's life that is a struggle, that maybe start with some kind of drudgery? You know the only thing that is actually worthwhile in a human being's life that way is when the human being finally sees that everything they went through led to that point where now they realize they can no longer do and be what they've been doing and being. They can no longer keep writing their own story using the same pen and the same writer's mind. That's what every lesson is, isn't it? In reality, if you can see it, isn't that what every lesson is about? I have to desist. I write when I'm afraid. I don't know if you can follow the metaphor. I write when I'm afraid. Boy, something's coming. Look what's coming at me. struggle, and trying to make that chapter pay out everything when everything before actually wrote the chapter. Not I writing the chapter, but everything put into chapter and verse that made me a victim of the very ending of the thing I thought would be my liberation. True or not? So what are we looking at here? We could call it an unseen problem, pretty much, couldn't we? That's why we have these meetings, so we can see what we don't want to see. Now, why in the name of God would anyone want to see what they've spent their whole life writing around? Here's a tip as an author, and I happen to be an author. Lots of times when authors find themselves writing about a gazillion more words than are needed, it's because they're trying to get around something they don't understand. Understanding is simple, really. It's quite clear. You know what the ultimate understanding is? You think you have to hurt yourself and you don't. You think you have to be afraid and you don't have to be. You think you have to do something to be something. Nothing could be further from the truth. But how in the name of God do I get to that point where I understand that in such a way that it becomes possible for me to allow the changes that are presented before my very eyes every day? Do you know every time that you have a fear pass through you and you jump through the hoop that it tells you to jump through, every time you're lonely or anxious and it pushes you or prods you to do something to bring an end to the pain you're in, every single time that that happens to you, right in front of your eyes, but unseen, is the solution to and the happy ending to the story that you inadvertently have been given to write and that you've identified with as the author of your life. On the way over here, there was some birds. I don't know what they were. It may have been an eagle, but could have been some kind of turkey vulture. It doesn't matter. And there was one maybe about 400 feet in the air, another one about 1,200 feet in the air. And they were just soaring. And they were against that background of these massive clouds. We're having a kind of a different spring and summer, aren't we? Who wrote that story? And if I look at that and I participate in the story, am I apart from the author of the story? Or in that moment, am I one and the same as the author of that story because I'm directly participating in the perfection of that moment, the balance, the beauty of it, the simplicity of it? Can I add anything to that story? I'm asking you to look at your own life. When you see something in nature that's beautiful, when you have an epiphany in that moment and suddenly a light breaks and reveals something inside of you that you couldn't see before, is there a need to add anything to that story? Is there or not? Absolutely not. So what if you could live a whole life where you didn't need to add anything to the story? Do you know why perfect love casts out fear? Because there's no division in perfect love. And where there's no division, there's no need to be protected or need to invent and write a story by which you're secure. You just are. And that's not enough for this mind. It has to always be doing something, thinking about something, going somewhere, planning something, unplanning something. Doesn't it? So the big problem is, if you're following the metaphor, when you write something, a story in advance, you write it at the beginning because you wouldn't start writing it if you didn't know the ending you have in mind when you start it. I'm going out tonight. I'm going to put on my red shoes and my red dress and bring my boxing gloves in case somebody wants to fight. An old song. I don't think to myself, I don't know what the end of this story will be. I think to myself, Prince Charming. He may look like a frog at first, but when you fall in love, everything passes. No, I go because I get through a moment, because going through it, I know the ending if I just get through it, don't I? Just get through it, I know the ending. And then I get to the ending, and guess what the ending is? It's not the end. It's the chapter I can't close. Because as soon as I know what the ending is, I'm in conflict with everything that leads up to it. Did you hear that? And what if that's what this nature is a mind that never stops writing, thinking? And it never stops thinking because it can't stop thinking. And you know why it can't stop thinking? Because the ending that it just got to in that moment where the person wasn't the way you wanted them to be, the moment didn't unfold the way you, in that moment it wasn't the ending you had imagined, so I have to go back, write new characters for you, control you to become that, and then figure out if that will finally bring an end to this conflict that I'm in with my life, moment to moment. See, there's another thing, if I may. You don't know that you're in conflict 24/7. I didn't know it. Not a clue. 24/7. You know why it's conflict 24/7? Because every moment is, if you will, intended to be not the consumptive. Every moment is intended to fulfill and answer all the thoughts that came before it. So the mind is always writing. You walk into the room, you don't know you don't know that behind the scenes you've got about 400 little imps with pens and sharp papers, and they're writing things. This needs to be like this, they should be like that. They didn't say hello to me. How come nobody said that to me today? Why didn't anybody wish me happy Father's Day? As an example, you don't know that you walk through life absolutely with a story in your mind about how things should be, and then when it doesn't go, because you don't know that's back there, all of a sudden you're bummed, you're negative, you're in some state. Why? Because it didn't work out. And then what do? You just write another chapter. I'm going to write a chapter that says, well, I don't care what people say, I don't care how people think. And then resistance becomes the author of the next page of your life. Do you see it with me? Everybody's such a disappointment, aren't they? Well, not when they're doing how I've written, but when they don't do how I've written, tear that page off the list, as a friend of mine would always say. Take him off the list, because he didn't write in the book, in my book of life. Why do people have those books, by the way, in their homes? You go, why do people have books where they want people to write about how much they love them? You don't think that's weird? I tell you, that's the strangest thing in the world. You know why? It's never enough. What about the story of Buddha as a parallel? Why did Buddha finally decide that regardless of what he had been told and the beautiful story with the happy ending that his mother, king and queen, had written for him, why did he decide he had to part ways with that? He saw it wasn't a true story. So in many ways, the Buddha, the prodigal son, all of these stories through history, these beautiful spiritual myths and tales, every last one of them is trying to get you to see the same thing. You write the story, you suffer the story you write. And I'm never not writing. What about you? What do you think you're doing when you're driving? Why do you think people have car accidents? Why do you think people overeat? I could go through the entire list. You know why? Because they're writing while they're eating, they're writing while they're driving. You're writing when you're sitting and talking to somebody you love. Are you not? Are you not having a conversation in your head as you're having a conversation with others? Who's writing that? And when people don't behave the way you've intended to them in the conversation, though you would never hold up a sign that says, this is how you're supposed to be. That'd be something, wouldn't it? Here's your line. Please read it exactly as written. And don't interrupt me. Finish your line. And then listen attentively for my line, because after that, I have another line for you. We don't know any other way other than to write our own story. Is that true or not? And just to summarize the first half, I didn't mean to go that far with the idea, but just to summarize the first half, I mean, when you think about it, where did I learn my writing skills? Did you develop your own writing skills, or were you brought into a consciousness that is unendingly writing a never-ending end to a story that never comes to an end? That is humanity, isn't it? Peace will be there. We just need to sell our soul and do this and get that done. And when it finally is done exactly, incidentally, the way I want it, not the way you want it, then there will be peace on earth. Just so you know, I don't know that there will ever be peace on earth. The only way there will ever be peace on earth is when love completely rules the planet. And it's very doubtful that love will ever rule the planet, although by a greater nature than we can conceive, there is a constant, what is the word that I want? When they separate wheat from chaff, what is that called? Threshing. There is a constant threshing being done, not just individually. You know that's going on, don't you? We don't know any other story. I lived this. I became my father. Whether I loved him and wanted to imitate him and be like him and be as he told me I should be like him, or I hated my father, I still became like him. Because if I hated my father, it's because my father had hate in him. So that whatever I am, I have become, without knowing it, the product of a world that is set against itself and against everything that is true and good, believing that it knows what is true and good because it's written the story. The problem is when it gets to the end, not only doesn't it know what is true and good because it's not true and good for everyone. Unless something is true and good for everyone, it's not good for anyone. Get to the end of the story, it's not the end I want. So I'll invent a new religion, I'll find a new teacher, I'll get a new political mind, I'll do something. I'll go on top of a mountain and live by myself because this world is so sick and crazy, there's no point in being in it. And every last part of that is a story that has an ending that you got to long before you reached it. And when you get to that ending, as you know, if you're willing to see it, you know, my God, not another ending I have to rewrite. Do you want to be rewriting your story for the rest of your life? You have to ask yourself that question. I don't. I refuse to. Because I know it isn't I who writes. What did we talk about last week? The middleman? The middle woman? That's who's writing. And yet, deep breath, transition now. Now we're going to get into some heavy stuff. And yet we know, because we've all seen it, we've all had glimpses, have we not? That there is another story. That's why we're here. There's another story. Just little moments where something happens and a person recognizes there's nothing else needed. Story's done. It is done. But then as soon as I have that moment, which amounts to what? The observer and the observed, a singularity. Not me and you, but another order of understanding, a we that cannot act against itself. However you want to put that into words. So there's moments like that. That's the blessing of being a human being. Imagine if there were never moments like that and a human being had to spend their life like some dull-witted cow on a pasture waiting to be taken to a slaughterhouse, barely making it through, laying there chewing its cud. Imagine if that's all there was to life. And by the way, for most human beings, that really is all there is to life. hoping to find some shade, get away from the biting flies, from stress, fresh straw, and maybe when the spring comes, some green grass to eat, and dream of another day to come, another spring. That is for life, for most human beings, but it mustn't be for you. What other story is there? Take a deep breath. Here we go. Something else I've said, but I want to cover with you again. The greatest gift in this world, without any doubt, is that we have a relationship and are capable of one with life. That when we enter into it, it reveals our infinite capacity for perfect similarity. Our infinite capacity for perfect similarity. Now, are those words confusing to you? I think for some people it is. But to simplify, our infinite capacity for perfect similarity, you like to go to the ocean? Yes? You like to see the mountains? Is it Hood? What's the mountain out there with the snow on top of it? Bachelor? McLaughlin? Some mountain. I never know the mountain where I live. There it is, like a giant, like a 10,000 foot snow cone. You see things the way you do, I see it the way I see it. It's just capped in white, magnificent, a god in relative to ground around it. No mountains like that, and out of nowhere, this massive mountain. Eric was talking about those trees along the way south to Medford from here. There's a stand of, I don't know what kind of trees there are, about 10 or 12 of them in a line, and they have these beautiful, they're conical almost in their shape and their leaves. And God, when they become first green and they're shimmering, and then not to mention in the fall when they all start turning color, it's like looking at a menorah. It's like looking at a table full of candles that are all lit. It's a religious experience. Why? You know that moment? Because my infinite capacity for perfect similarity. In that moment, there's no me and there's no tree. There's no me and there's no eagle in the sky. And I know it's rare for us, but that's part of why I'm talking, because you must take and understand the rarity is meant to be the single constancy in your life. Not the other way around where you're busy writing, and then by grace, something shows you a split second of another possibility, of another order of being, with a story that is already written and you're in it. Not looking for something in it. You've returned home. How did Buddha or any saint or sage, any master who's ever walked this planet, how did they become what they became? Infinite capacity for perfect similarity. What's compassion? Not this made-up compassion, but real compassion. I can't let you do that by yourself. I have to help you if I see you're struggling. Compassion is dead. You know why? Because in our story, we've written what compassion is, and then we act it out when it ends, feeds the end of the story of ourselves as someone compassionate. That's not compassion. What is patience? How does a person come to patience? By the way, perhaps one of the greatest singular gifts of human being is given, because it's intimately connected to humility. How does a person come to patience? Can anybody tell me? I've been telling you, infinite capacity for perfect similarity. Now, how does patience work into infinite capacity for perfect similarity? Can anybody tell me? Because when I'm impatient and I look out and I blame my impatience on the world around me, if I have an infinite capacity for perfect similarity, I realize you're not the source of my impatience. This moment, this perfect moment of reflection, is revealing to me a quality or a characteristic in my own consciousness that doesn't want to know that it's there, and so it writes a story about how it's different than that. Doesn't it? Isn't every justification we've ever made for any problem we've ever had a way in which we've written ourselves around a problem in the story to come to an ending we have to have so that you're the villain? Yes or no? Why don't I like silence? Because my story is loud. My story needs stimulation, doesn't it? Because the more stimulation I have, the more things I have to write about, threshing out the parts of the story I don't like and writing around the parts that I do. And then get to the end of that particular sensation, which promises me if I just write the ending where I've won the lottery of a lifetime of Oreo cookies or whatever it is that you think, is the consummate happiness. And then I get to the end and they're dated back to 1910. It's like, my happiness becomes my curse. My ambition is seen as greed. My desire is seen as never not accompanied by that which will produce the opposite experience. Now, I'm talking about another story, aren't I? So this perfect similarity, which, this is our problem, because you love that. I'm looking at this, the big dog. I've talked about this buck. I've known a long time now, and now he's a man. and this year I think he's going to be 6 points, because massive head. Now he comes and I'm feeding. I'm trying to get some Instagram videos of my friends. Tammy, the main doe, I did post this, I think. She had twins. I don't know where the other one was. I hope it's still around. And I love the idea of similarity. I look at this massive, beautiful, noble beast, and I can feel this nobility, and I'm right on board. See, I'm noble. But I don't want anything to do with the turkey. The turkey. I have no similarity with a turkey, do you? In fact, I hate any time anybody calls me a turkey. Maybe it would be a compliment. There is that within us that wants to see what it wants to see, and when it is identified with what it wants to see, it doesn't want to see anything that isn't like what it hoped to see. And we blame what we don't want to see on the condition around us instead of a consciousness that has written the story well in advance of the moment that reveals the ending, and the ending is never satisfying because it leaves me in conflict. I'm still in conflict. I'm still afraid. I want to tell you something, and I have to be careful how I tell you, because I don't want you to misunderstand me or let me misrepresent anything to you. There is a life where you're not afraid anymore. And the thing is, it's unthinkable. You can't write it. Everything you write into your life, every thought that comes along, every new image, new affirmation, whatever the nonsense is that this world propagates and gets you to swallow hook, line, and sinker, and then gives you more if you'll just pay for it, every last part, that's a lie. And the challenge is that you have to yourself understand that. You have to actually start to realize, here I am, and I'm getting ready to write another chapter. Do you understand that? Because we're leading eventually to an exercise here. When you lay in bed at night, what are you doing? You're laying there, you're actually trying to go to sleep. But if you could see, you would see another part of you sitting up in bed that's going. Isn't it? What kind of life is that? Is it a life? It is one order of existence, isn't it? But it's a hell of a one, literally. I'm going to have to go quicker now. Scary, huh? Some of you should be scared to see that. Now, this used to be called the looking glass, but now we call it a mirror. Now, this mirror, is it defined by what passes in front of it? Is it defined? I'm holding a clock. Is the mirror defined by the clock that is in it? And I've turned the clock so the mirror can see, sweet God, it's 10:16. And I haven't reflected a pizza in days. So it's not concerned by the time on the clock. It isn't the time on the clock, is it? And it's not the clock. Yes or no? Not the clock. Here's a glass of water. It's reflected in the glass. Is the mirror the thing that's reflected in it? Is it the water in it? I could go on with that, but I haven't time to do it. Does that mirror take on the qualities of that glass of water? What if it's chocolate milk? I had to pick something. I don't even drink chocolate milk, but I used to love the idea of it. What if it's chocolate milk? Does the mirror go, oh, chocolate milk, cupcake? Does it do that? Why doesn't the mirror take on the quality of what's reflected in it? Because it has a different nature. And its nature is such that everything can come and be reflected in it, and it perfectly reflects everything that comes into it. You could say it has a perfect similarity in terms of what's being reflected, and yet it's none of the things that it reflects. Yes or no? Can it go, oh God, look what time it is? Can it? So it doesn't avoid certain things, and it doesn't try to, what about this? Hold that a little longer, I'm so thirsty. Nor does it cling to what passes in front of it. If I am in fact created with the infinite capacity for perfect similarity, and in that moment of perfect similarity with what is what is being reflected in my consciousness, isn't that the perfect similarity? That when I look out and I see this gorgeous tree in our little orchard out there, if I'm fully attentive to that, where am I seeing that? Where does that tree appear? Where does that tree appear? It has no meaning outside of its appearance in my consciousness. Actually, it doesn't exist without its appearance reflected in my consciousness. If a tree falls in the woods, no one's there to hear it. Does it make a sound? If I see beauty, but there's no one there to register it and reflect it in the consciousness, is there beauty, or is all of that a constant state of mutual dependency upon which, when it is completed, completes the moment of that which is seen and the one seeing it? Do you understand? That's what we're looking at. But there's obviously a problem built into this, isn't there? And that is that for us, without knowing it, and God help us, and He will, if you learn to ask and act properly, meaning work I don't see anything. Don't misunderstand me. I'm going to drive my car. You better hope that I'm not Mr. Magoo. I can see traffic. I can see. But I look at you. I don't see you. I see the story that has been written about you. What do you think keeping accounts are? What do you think what you call mostly love? What do you think that is? You think it's the person that you love? No, you've got this story, this background constantly reiterating itself, and the more you think about it, the more you enjoy the memory of that thing, and the sensation inherent in the memory is what you call love. Love isn't a sensation, by the way. Love is a realization that is endlessly recreating and refreshing itself. So, I'm in this place in my life where I'm forever not seeing. And because I'm forever not seeing, now listen, if you can follow this, because I'm not actually what I am created to be, which is an instrument that is the capacity for perfect and infinite capacity to perfectly reflect. Do you ever think to yourself this? I don't want to go too far. Do you know that there's no space anywhere where in one respect or another there isn't something with eyes there? What are all these eyes? Is the earth itself is the constant is constantly reflected in the eyes of the creatures the earth has made. It is a perfect reciprocity. All for the purpose of what? Of gradually discovering what I'm leading to here, and then I'm going to give you the last story. We don't make a new beginning. We don't write a new beginning. We are that which is always being made new. You are that which is always being written into a new story. That's what you are. That's what I am. Bring up the last key lesson, will you please? Then I'll tell you the story. I hope you'll contemplate this. Whatever we see speaks of its creator in a silent word no ear can hear, no thought can grasp. Whatever we see speaks of its creator in a silent word no ear can hear, no thought can grasp. What if that's true? Try to see it both sides. I look out and I see somebody I don't like. Doesn't that speak of its creator? Doesn't that speak of its creator? I look at this moment, no, this moment's not right. Doesn't that speak of its creator? I look out and I see perfectly the tree, the color, the light, the shadowing. In that moment, I see it perfectly, and there's no longer an observer or an observed. Doesn't that speak of its creator? In a silent word, no ear can hear, no thought can contain or grasp. This is what we are looking at. The task is, and it's not an easy one, how do I get to this place where I am, for all intents and purposes, realizing that when I'm looking out at life, at anything in life, I'm looking at and experiencing its creator. The question is, whose book do I want to be a part of? Ready for the last story? I like this story because it says so much without saying anything. Nice deep breath. Because we're looking at how do I stop writing this story, yes? And how do I enter into the story? The story's there, which if you understand it, how do I enter into a story that's already there? I simply have to exit the story that's not part of the real story, don't I? So here's a shipwreck at sea. All aboard are lost. They know they're going to be lost. The ship is going down. It's the old days. Which I don't know what those are anymore. But a big schooner. And it doesn't look like a beer mug. A schooner is three-mast, massive sailing ship crossing unknown seas in an unknown world, if you will. big, massive storm, ship's going down. There's a mother and a father and a baby. And everybody knows the ship's going down. No one's going to be saved. But they want to save their baby. This is critical to them. So they take the baby and they put it in a basket, big basket. Don't ask me how they found a basket when the ship is going down. It's my story. You write your own later. And they put this baby in a basket and they wrap it in a swaddling cloth. And they go find this book. And they want this child to have this book because they know at some point in this child's life, that child will open the book and find in it what they need to find their way back to their home. So the ship goes down and there's the baby in the basket floating around in the swaddling cloth and with the book on top of it. And in this story, it's a miracle. The baby survives. You can see it, can't you? You know, the kid wouldn't be going, oh no, he'd be going, whoa, whoa. Like that. Woo! Wow, what was that? Whale would come along, spout it. Oh, I love that. Unless you are like little children. You know, little children don't have stories for the most part other than what they've been ruined with in this world. But the meaning of innocence. Basket runs up against the shore. It's kind of like the story of Moses in a way, isn't it? Basket runs up the shore, and the baby's rescued. Mother and father, parents take it back to their home. They raise the child as their own, but they're very careful about a couple things. One, they take all the mirrors in the house out. Not a mirror in the house. And they are very careful not to let the child go anywhere where there might be a mirror. Now, the kid doesn't know there's no mirrors in the house because the kid never saw a mirror. Just like Buddha's parents didn't want him to see suffering and all the rest of that. Follow me? Because they knew it would start another journey. A completely different story, wouldn't it? So the child grows up, and you've seen stories like this. Gosh, what is it? Les Mis? Other stories where the child finds its way into a home and it's made to work, for its living. It's told that this is your life. You're here to serve me. You're here to serve the people that come to our establishment, whatever it might be. So the child grows up believing that it's his responsibility to serve the people who is giving it a roof and food and a home and giving it a happy ending. It's always saying, look, when we're gone, all of this is going to be yours. Do you remember that? Isn't that part of the story? Just be honest, loyal, and true to what we tell you to do, and everything will work out for you. It's right there in a big mantle over his mirror, over his the mantle, no mirrors. Now the child, on the other hand, has food, shelter, but it's abused. When the child doesn't do what the parents tell it to do, the child's corrected. That's a euphemism, isn't it? Beat. Child doesn't know, but as the child grows up and starts to become a young person, the child begins to think to itself without knowing why, because what does it have to measure? Everything in the world is exactly that for him. It's all he sees. Begins to feel like there's something wrong. I shouldn't be afraid of my parents. I shouldn't resent them. I don't know why I shouldn't, because that's all I've been. Do you understand? That's all I know. I shouldn't fight with my own thoughts. The parallel. So this grows in the child. I call it divine discontentment when I speak of it in other ways. You've heard that expression, haven't you? Somehow the world that he's in, where he has most everything, except the problem is having most everything costs him most everything. And he begins to have dreams, flashbacks of a sort, little shots of images of things that he can't quite understand, but he keeps seeing in his mind's eye a book. He doesn't know why he would see this book, but he keeps seeing it. This represents those moments where a part of you remembers that there's another story because you've seen some of it, yes? Now, the parents have gone to great extremes to hide this book. And they often talk about the tremendous damage that would be done if this child ever found this book that came with it from its origin. But we never know why. I'm kind of taking you in and out of the story. Please tell me you're following. The child begins to look for a book. Doesn't even know exactly what book it's looking for, and it finds all kinds of books. I don't have any props up here. They've got the religious books that belong to that world. It's got the political book, all these books, art books, books galore. He's been given a whole library of books. But he can't find the book. And he keeps searching, and then one day, because I've run out of time, one day he finds the book. And he knows when he sees it because there's something about the symbol, whatever it is on the front of the book. And when he opens it, he's unbelievably stunned. He's shocked. Do you know why he's unbelievably stunned, shocked when he opens that book? Because the only thing that's in the book is a mirror. And you know what he sees when he looks in the mirror? He looks nothing like the people that raised him. They're not even the same species. What do you think that boy does? Do you think he goes and tries to confront those people? Or like the prodigal son who finally saw that he could see nothing in the world he was in, does he then begin a journey in earnest, understanding that he must find something that is reflected in him by which when he sees it, he knows that is not him. Not that is him, that is not him. What's the parallel here? One day you will see the face of a fear. You never see a fear, you see the object of a fear. One day you'll see a fear start to write a story. You better hurry. You really better hurry. You better worry about what's going to happen if you don't get this chapter done. Do you know what you stand to lose? All that you've written before, out the window. Everybody will see you're a fake. The world will recognize you're nothing at all but the appearance of something that has no validity to it all. You fill in the blanks. This is the fear that you live without knowing it. Because every time that chapter comes up, it tells you, do this, go there, fix that. Don't at all costs. No, 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 no. And you need in that moment to not only look into the mirror and realize I'm not looking at anything that's like myself. How do I know the fear is nothing like myself? Because I can see it, and perfect similarity allows me to recognize that is not I, even though it is in I. That's the beginning of the end of fear. That's the beginning of a never-ending story of your true self, because every moment is supposed to be like that. Every moment that you're capable of attending to what is in the mirror instead of attending to what you didn't want to see or what you want to see, and then spending your life writing the next chapter of a book that will always have to be rewritten and rewritten. That's what reincarnation is. The ceaseless rewriting of your story by a consciousness that has no intention whatsoever of doing anything other than continuing itself. So what is the exercise? We're at the end of the talk. Catch yourself thinking. Thinking is how the mind writes its own story, but it's not your mind writing it. Thinking is how fear comes about, because thought is comparative and always trying to figure out if this matches the story that was written the moment before or 1,000 years before. Just catch yourself starting to write the story. And when you look in the mirror of that moment and realize I'm looking at something, I'm looking at myself that I know is not myself, and yet that self is in this consciousness, isn't it? And the more clearly you see that, the more decisive your action will be. And the more decisive the action, the more clearly you'll see how indecisive you've been because you've allowed something to write your story, and now it's time to bring an end to that. Everybody have some inkling here? Let's take a break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
All right, everyone, welcome back to part 2 of our class. We're going to have an open Q&A discussion dialogue with Guy now for the next probably about 45 minutes. We'll run till about 11:30 a.m. Pacific, our time here. While we wait for everyone to come back and get settled, I just want to go over a few announcements with you. So at the start of class, I mentioned a special event that we have coming up here at the Foundation this coming weekend. Starting on Friday and running through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we have our Weekend of Wisdom with Guy. And this is a weekend where Guy gives a special series of talks, and we have people who come visit the foundation, and you're invited to participate in this special weekend with us. I know some of you have already made your plans to come. And anyone who wants to join us is welcome to spontaneously do so here in Merlin, Oregon. But also, just those of you who are watching right now, you will be able to watch online the free live stream of these classes as well. So if you're on GoToWebinar, you're already signed up, you'll receive reminder emails before the classes. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, we also will be live streaming the classes there as well, per the usual. Please note, though, that we will not be including these talks in our replay channels for free. So usually we post all of the talks that Guy gives on Sunday and Wednesday on our replay channels. But we're making a special package, a replay package out of this series of talks. And so if you're not able to join the live stream, you can still get a hold of the replay package. You can go to guyfinley.org/package. And that will take you to a page that tells you more about that. You'll get online, access to view the talks again online, download the MP3 audio and MP4 video files. I mentioned also that Guy said that he's going to include this coming Wednesday's talk in that package. So it will be a package of 4 talks total. And so this is a nice way also for you to support our work. If you're wanting to do that, if you gain some benefit from these classes, this is a nice way for you to, make a purchase and support our work and get something nice in return. We are a nonprofit, and everything, all the pennies we receive, all the funds we receive from our donations and sales of our products go right back into helping this work and keeping these live streams going, et cetera. So again, if you'd like to get a hold of that package, you can go to guyfinley.org/package. And of course, if you have any questions about any of this, just let us know. Reach out to us on our website, and we'll be happy to help you. And then I also just want to make a quick mention about the different platforms that we broadcast on here. So we broadcast Guy's Sunday and Wednesday classes on GoToWebinar, Facebook, and YouTube, and you're invited to tune in anytime for any of these classes. GoToWebinar is the most interactive platform where you can actually come on during the Q&A after his talk and speak with him directly if you wish. YouTube and Facebook have their own benefits. On YouTube, you can watch nicely on your smart TV. It has most compatibility with other devices for you to view. On Facebook, there are closed captions right on the stream itself. So just wanted to make sure that you know about those different ways that you can tune into the classes, and all the replays, with the exception of our Weekend of Wisdom packages, all of the replays go up on those channels as well. So I just want to make sure you know about that. All right, I think we're ready to get started. Let's bring Guy back on. And Guy, are you ready to get going with the Q&A, or do you have anything you want to add first?
Oh, nothing I want to add.
All right, I see 2 hands are already up in the queue, and just for those, if you don't know how to raise your hand, there's a little hand icon that looks like this, and you can click or tap that if you're on GoToWebinar and raise your hand to talk with Guy. I'll also keep an eye on the chat areas in YouTube and Facebook, and you can send a note there as well if you want me to come on and read something to Guy. And of course, everyone in the room, you're invited to step in as well. Is someone there?
Yeah, Chrissy's on stage. We'll let her get us started.
I really love this talk. I thought it was so perfect because on the way to class this morning, my daughter is leaving today for 2 months to travel through Europe and down in California. And as I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, everything that the story that we write about what's going to make us happy, and all the planning and all the chapters and all the things, none of that fills the heart. The only thing is what we're given. And the only way that we can be given anything is to participate in life, to be here in this moment while I'm giving my talk to you. As I'm driving, I allow the beautiful spring and the greenery that's everywhere. That fills a person's heart. But when you write the story, life never measures up to what you want. And so you're always disappointed in the stories that you write. I just wish, that I could say that to her, and I may. She won't get it, but thank God that I can see it. And I know that there is another level where your person doesn't have to be afraid, where what is life's giving me now is the lesson that's to help me grow and to be more and to be a better participant in the life that we're given.
I would add to that, although as Blake would have written, in a scale of time too great to see with our eyes, but not to realize through this capacity for perfect similarity. When something monumental takes place, I don't know, I might have read this a long time ago, but somewhere a gazillion years ago, there was some armored fish swimming in the shallows of some ocean. And it was the progeny of endless generations. And a thought came to it. It wasn't its thought, but the thought could not be separated from a mutation that had taken place in that creature. And the mutation said, crawl up out of the water. What's that other world? And when it did that, we know from science, which has its place, it is not a God, although it has made itself one. We know that that mutation changed the whole lineage of that species from that point on. And every mutation that takes place in any creature sets in stage not just all that will come forward, but it changes everything that led up to that. Because time is not a separate item, it is a stream. You change anything in the stream of time, you change the stream of time. Like I say, not much it's hard to grasp, but my willingness to set the pen down and not write that story that always ensures that I make other people be and do what I want them to be so my story works out. I don't care what I do to their story. Their story changes. It has to change because you've entered into another book. Their storyline has to run into the end of itself because you have come to the end of the storyline you wrote for yourself. That's why nobody wants anybody to change, incidentally. Change. On we go.
All right, we have 3 hands up in the queue, which is great to see. Let's see, we're going to start with our friend Steve. I'll unmute you, Steve, and you're up.
Hi, Kate. Hi, Guy. Can you hear me?
Very well. Hi, Steve.
Okay. Hi. I have to say, this was profound for me in so many ways. It linked together so many things, but for the first time I understood perfect similarity. And by what you shared, it linked together. In the ending story, it brought together so many things, and so many different stories linked up in my mind, both spiritual and also things like Oliver Twist with the locket, but the ending story that linked it all together was what it feels like you're sharing with us as an offering is to realize at the end of the movie The Last Samurai, where before Katsumoto was searching for the perfect blossom, and at the end he realized, and I know you know the story, so that's why I'm sharing it, but that in the end he realized that they're all perfect.
Exactly.
He moved from searching in his own story to finding that other story.
Yes.
And it just resonated through me today in a really deep way, and I thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. I was thinking when Steve was talking about the story, the end story, he opens the book, and what they didn't want him to see was that he wasn't the same creature. Kind of an ugly duckling story in a way. But do you remember this? I do. For the longest time, I was sure I was adopted. I couldn't possibly belong to these people. That's impossible. Did you ever, anybody see how many? It's shocking. It's a parallel. Anyway, let's go on. I was right. Over to you, Kate.
All right, we're going to go to Joni next. And Guy, just a quick note that you can turn off that light to your right if you wish, if it's in.
I did. Thank you.
All right, here is Joni.
Hello, Guy and everyone.
Oh my God, a chorus. I hope you could hear it.
Yeah, yeah. Happy Father's Day to all your dads. Guy, I really appreciated this talk today. It expanded on, I think, Wednesday's talk and the talk about the middleman.
Yeah.
And as you know, I moved to my hometown away from Grants Pass.
You did?
And I can see, yes. Did you not know that?
No, I didn't. Where have you gone?
I'm hiding. So I see how the middleman is always setting you up for, for failure. Another story. I mean,
Yes.
and it's got to do with comparison too, because
Yes.
I get here and I'm comparing how things was in the past and it's not here now.
So you're ready to come
And then I'm
home?
comparing how things are different from in Grants Pass. I've been working really hard to be in the now and not be set up by that middleman all the time.
Yeah.
It's
You've only been there a week, and I can already hear your Buffalo accent.
what can I say? I just value your talk so much now, especially now that I'm away from there. So.
Yeah. Speaking of adopted, yes, Joni.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're safe.
Yeah.
I always want to hear your voice at least once a week. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And I really loved what Steve was saying about the perfect blossom and the seminar. I can see where that similarity is within all of us. That perfectness within us from the divine. We just have to keep out of the way, from this middleman and this self.
Yes. Remember your lessons, Joni, especially the one I gave you just before you left.
Yes, move on. Yes, I
All right.
remember. Thank you.
Good girl. On we go, Kate.
All right, Imogen has her hand up. Let's go to Imogen, and then raise your hand, folks, if you want to join in, and anyone in the room, go on up to the mic. But here's Imogen.
Hello, Guy, and your team.
Hi,
there.
Imogen.
I'm really confused. I thought we were given this life. I'm the creator, and I could be anything I want to be. And today you seem to be saying I have to surrender to what is, which seems the opposite. But where have I misunderstood all that?
It isn't that you've been lied to. It's just that anything that isn't the whole story is a lie. You and I were given these magnificent brains, these hearts with endless capacity to reflect all that is created from love and out of the relationship that we have with the world. Depending on our circumstances, it is entirely necessary and proper that we explore our own capacities as creators. I'm drawn to certain things. I'm drawn to participate in creating certain things because I'm drawn to discovering my similarity to what I'm drawn to. I want to understand. I grow. But I am before a creator, a creation Imogen. And there is an order to these things. And unless the creator that I am given the right to be is aligned with that which gave that creator the powers, the authority, the impetus, the need to create, unless that is aligned, all I can do is create things in my own image. And that's what the story is that's wrong, is everything's in my own image, and it's not even my image. It's in the image of a consciousness that's been created and developed and conditioned over untold periods of time to constantly seek itself through its own creation. That's what narcissism is, the negative narcissism. I can't take my eyes off my own story. And when my story doesn't match how life is revealing it, I can't take my eyes off how much I don't want life, and then I have to take my eyes and put it on another chapter, something else to write. So I hope that helps explain that, Imogen.
Thank you.
Come on up, Jane. Jane is walking up to the mic. She's full of enthusiasm. I can just see it.
Hello, everyone. This is
Hello, everyone. No.
Everything is better without Jane.
Oh, okay. She has a new handle. 10-4.
Roger.
No, that's Roger.
Oh, yeah. So Jane is finding that out intensely while she is now in the chapter of visiting the foundation. And so far, it's not going the way she wrote it.
Oh, no.
No.
Oh, God. How disappointing is that?
I have to say, there's been some surprising, beautiful moments with students that I didn't write that either. But the rest, I'm staying in a very nice but small 2-room place. And I think I've misplaced everything I own. And when I'm trying to get out the door, well, I'll give you the best example is I was instructed how to lock up and be sure everything's safe and take care of things. And the first morning I got up and what I couldn't find was my keys. I'll give a guess. Does anybody know where they might have been?
In your hand?
Outside in the front door.
Your privileges are herewith rescinded.
And yesterday, I was working with some students here, and I noticed what Guy was saying about Jane does not like silence. And so all this nonsense, filler conversation came out. And I happened to mention to Kate that I'd liked the Inside Timer. And she said something back at me that I felt I needed to say why I liked it. And I said, well, he interacted so well with everyone. It felt like a very good meeting. But I could not remember one single thing that he said. And I saw that I remember Guy saying, don't watch me like a TV show. And I thought, I've got to remember something he said so I can show her that I really was there. And then I remembered something he said because Chris happened to remind me about it. It wasn't even my own. And I wondered, should I go tell her and pretend it was me and I remember a real thing? And I'm second guessing everything, every moment. So what I guess one main point I'd like to give. I think I'm a poster person for this coming weekend, to come here and share this intense light. And if you think you know yourself and your manifestations, come here and find out how that...
There's a welcoming note.
Well, on the welcoming side, I think this is my third time. Ever since the first moment I visited, I've wished I were here permanently. You will love it, and you will be loved. So I look forward to meeting you.
So it's not all autographs and sunglasses, Jane? No. Come on, Sally. Sally's coming up, Kate. What have we got in the queue? Anything?
Yeah, we have 2 people with their hands up.
Okay. Come on, Sally. You go, and then we'll get to everybody.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sally. I, too, absolutely love this talk. It really touched deeply. The whole premise of the story is, from the first time I moved here, I realized this nature is always and has always been looking for a beginning, a middle, and an end. That is order to this nature. There has to be an end. And it struck me during the talk that I never wrote the beginning. I'm not writing the end. I am continuing what has been written before.
Yes.
And without having started it, how can I even know where the end is going? It just amazed me. And when you were talking about writing the last chapter, I thought I knew exactly where this was, where you were headed with the
You'd
talk.
written the last chapter, huh? Before.
Well, there can be no last chapter, and it reminded me of something you said that I heard you say. I'm sure you've been saying it many times since, that there's only the beginning.
Yes.
There is only ever the beginning. There is no middle. There is no end, except that the end is actually
The beginning.
the beginning.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah. See it more deeply. Little by little, little light, little light, little light. This little light of mine, I'm gonna make it shine. Okay, Kate, let's do what we have, and then we'll let speakers come up if they want to.
I'll bet people would rather hear you sing.
Yeah. Oh, maybe another time. Maybe I'll sing at the Christmas banquet.
I like that. All right, we're going to go to Gloria next, and then Jamie after Gloria.
Good morning, Guy. Happy Father's Day. Great solo. I like that. This little light of mine, very good. My story, I feel like with my story, it begins at conception. It begins at birth, and the story was already written for me. And the things that I feel like that were brought into my life, because we don't choose our parents, we don't choose situations. Things in life just happen, good or bad. Those are just waking us up to what isn't our story, but how we deal with that by going back to our original story, which was already written. I don't know. That's just kind of like how I feel in this journey.
Well, stay with your understanding and let your understanding change as you see more. Don't make what you understand the end of the story. That's what it wants to be. As long as you think you understand, you're dead in the water. Let's go on, Kate.
Beautiful.
All right, thank you, Gloria. Yes, we're going to go to Jamie, and that will wrap up our online discussion, but we'll stay open after that, and if anyone in the room wants to go up, you can do so, and then you can continue to watch online as well. Here's Jamie.
Hi, Guy.
Hi.
My question is, outside of practical thoughts, is there any mental activity that isn't writing our own story?
Outside of practical thought? No.
Yeah.
That is the short answer. There is, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If the story has me as the central character, it's the wrong story. But if, for instance, let's say, how shall I say, what would be a good example? I'm working on something that I'm drawn to. I could take the idea of I'm working on a couple books presently, or I'm working on my golf swing, trying to understand more of the dynamic, to be more effective, more consistent. Now, as I'm working on that, and I have the fortune of playing with others who can help me, of looking at videos as I will do, which I've never done before, that I might absorb through image what the moving center should be doing instead of trying to think it through. All of that is valuable. And when I am thinking about these things, because I must, I must take into all of my parts what is granted to me through my visual understanding, through my motion, through my emotion. So I will think about these things. Now, you can't really say they're practical because nobody makes a living, and would that ever be true of me, playing golf. But on the other hand, it allows the integration of the intellectual center to wrap itself around and probe more deeply the things that are trying to connect themselves. So everything works to constantly integrate itself, Jamie, and in that integration is a certain, what's the word I want? A certain realization, and the realization always transcends the thoughts that lead up to it. So thought, as one is wishing to learn and is drawn to something that they love, is not out of place. Thought is out of place when I am the one trying to achieve or become the end of that story where I have finally become something that everybody respects as a golfer. That's called hell. And by the way, it will ensure that I never become that, because I'll always live in fear that people will see me as I actually am, which is a hack. I hope that helps, Jamie. Huh? Is that it, Kate?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so we open the room to speakers if there are any, and you're welcome to stay with us. Patricia is coming up to share something, and I have no doubt there'll be one or two. We learn a lot this way. I hope you'll stay.
Hi, my name is Patricia. I saw, as I was sitting in my chair listening to the guy writing a story, and it was a practical story, but it came from past memory. I think every story has to come from memory,
Indeed.
Which is the past. And I saw that I wasn't open, as long as I was writing this story, I wasn't open to anything new that can happen, or just, it was just old, stagnant in me. And it felt bad. It just felt bad. So
that is the story. Come on up, Eric. I didn't have time to go into detail, and if I had, like a screen, or I could have created special effects. When he looked into the mirror, he saw himself as a young, vibrant human being. But what you would have seen that he was looking at all the time were old, decrepit, saggy, sad human beings. And they were young. That was the world he lived in. Patricia just looked in the mirror and saw that old, saggy story. Good. Eric.
Hi, my name is Eric. I think there was so much good in this talk today that so much of what was talked about is so good that we can't take it all in.
Correct.
All at once. Our bodies would explode.
Correct. He's right. You cannot put new wine in old skins. That's exactly right.
Vernon Howard said that, he once said in a talk, I believe, that a person can take the sayings of Christ and make two categories, split it right down the middle. Half of it was talking about the heavenly heights, and the other half, the depths of human, the depths of humanity, human nature. And you have to have both.
Yes.
You have to have both at the same time in a true school. You wouldn't want to be where they're just talking about the depths and you're being lied to if it's just the heights.
Exactly. You've just nailed the whole weekend coming up. That is what I'm going to talk about, is that world that is between the heights and the depths that we must stand in all the time. Precisely.
And then you can see both.
Yes.
And there's a German philosopher named, it's a mouthful, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. You've all seen his writings, I'm sure. And it looks, if you've just read it, it looks like Goethe. But he said of Shakespeare that he so completely covered the heights and the depths of human nature that there remains for the aftercomer nothing more to do. And I have a Shakespeare that could have, this is today's Shakespeare that could have been today's key lesson. A pack of blessings, this is Romeo and Juliet, and in the story there's a good friar, and he's basically giving, I believe this is what it's the part, there's a good friar and he's basically giving Romeo a correction. And it says, and this is all of us, see if this is not us. A pack of blessings lights upon thy back. Happiness courts thee in her best array, but like a misbehaved and sullen wench, thou poutest upon thy fortune and thy love. Take heed, for such die miserable. And that's good news. That's good news when we see it.
No, it is.
I want to say one more thing.
Please, take your time, Eric.
I'm reading, I'm like fourth of the way through Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. And I'm only a fourth of the way through, but it may be the best novel, I think, ever written. But the couple of chapters I read last night, there was a landowner, and he decided to go out and mow his fields with the peasants. This is 1880s Russia. So he was a landowner and he had peasants working his land, were on the land working for him. And when we think of mowing, we think of a machine that does it for us. But Tolstoy described, they had a scythe, I think it's called.
Yes, it is.
And they would swing it all day long, from dawn till dusk. And this landowner went out and worked, and it was the happiest day of his life. Working, physical work, just the physical work. And it just so happens that yesterday I mowed on a riding lawnmower.
You didn't use a scythe?
I didn't.
Eric.
Nope. A riding lawnmower, and I could see, yeah, John just did this. Yeah, I like it. There's a right part of me that likes the work, but also the complaining.
The wench was with you?
The wench.
Yeah.
And it's a riding lawnmower. But that's it.
like the emotion, Eric?
Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah. This writing the story goes really deep. We talked about addictions a few classes ago. Nobody really wants to admit that they have an addiction, but writing the story is an addiction, I've seen. And if you try to stop it, or that's how you know it's an addiction, because when you try to stop it, you have the withdrawals that an addict goes through. But I can tell that we're being prepared to accept these things. Like Eric just said, we'd explode if we saw everything all at once. But we're being prepared to see these parts of ourselves that are not united. Like, you can tell that that's what the work does. I don't even know how to say it, but everything that always was is. We just weren't there in the isness of it, right? And
wasn't that your dog, Izzy?
Izzy, yes. Anyways, you can feel the good in not lying to yourself anymore, and you can feel something being united in you, even though every part of you is fighting, the false part of you is fighting against it. You know something is being brought together.
Yes.
Oops. Good morning. My name is Kate. Hi again. Sometimes there are classes that it feels like so many elements kind of merge together. Just, I don't know, with the beauty of the outside and the words that are being spoken here, and a doorway opens up inside of you, and just kind of all these impressions flood in. I felt like today was one of those days, and based on some of the comments I was seeing in the back end today, I think it was for many folks. Before class, here in the room, we play a 15-minute video that just kind of rotates through some announcements and quotations. And one of the quotations is, "What matters is what you love, for that is what determines the true and final course of your life." Yeah. And it's a quotation from Guy's book, The Secret of Your Immortal Self, I believe.
Don't know.
I think so.
Okay.
So I'm the one who put together the slide, and the picture that I had to go with that is showing two paths, two roads, opening up and branching off to the left and right. And then there's the sun between them in the sky. And, I just really felt like that image went well with today's talk. I want to bring this together with something Guy said in the talk. As soon as I know what the ending is, I'm in conflict with everything that leads up to it. So often I just see things at earth level. I see roads splitting ahead of me, and there's a lot of drama about which road to take. Do I go left or do I go right? How do I choose the right road? How do I know if this is what's good for Kate or that's what's good for Kate? And wow, lift your eyes a little bit, yes, and you see the light. You see something which is guiding you, which is always there. Yes. It's always there. And you walk forward with your eye on that, and you don't even, you take a path in this world, but it doesn't matter what path it is. I mean, it's actually not a physical path in time. You are walking within yourself, so to speak, into, I just lost it. I feel like I'm right there, sort of understanding something, but, you know, then there's no Kate trying to become something in this world, is what I'm trying to say. There's a Kate who is within the timeless realm itself, you know, just being an instrument of something of that up ahead. I hope that came across.
Love grows what love grows, and no one knows where it goes.
Hi, my name's Debbie. I had the blessing of having kids. So when Guy spoke about the baby being put in the basket and its reaction to being in the ocean and in the waves, you know, it doesn't know, it doesn't have a story to draw upon. And I've talked about this before, but I wanted to bring it up again because it really relates to this. I was on a ride in Disney World or something with my son. We got on this rickety old wooden ride. It was like a roller coaster, but it kind of was old. And it was really amazing because we were going along really slowly, and then all of a sudden, right at the beginning of the ride, it did a nosedive, and up my son, of course you're concerned about your child, and he started to cry. And then what came up in me was this story from my conditioning. How awful this ride was, how could they ever do this? This thought going and going. And my son, the next thing I knew, he was laughing his head off. So that was an indication to me that, you know, he didn't have the same conditioning I did, and he was totally in the moment. And, you know, that's what this life is meant to be. Real life is just to have these revelations and impressions and just go along with life and what it's giving you. And you know, it's always, you know, the best thing you could ever experience, even though something in you will say no. Anyway.
Hi, my name is Leah. Wonderful talk. This part that Sally brought up at the end with there's only beginnings. It made me realize Leah writes endings. Leah focuses on endings.
Her motivation comes from an ending that can never be anything other than the next thing that motivates her.
Yeah.
Endlessly.
The next goal, the next get there, the next obtain. It's been a life.
You're, in one respect, you're lucky. You know, certain types, you know, what the world would call type A, you know. You have that much more to work with. That much more to give up.
It's probably more to give up, but there's also more seen because there's been so many attainments.
Exactly.
You know, you talked about the breeze with the scarf, and I'm like, yeah, I was on Lake Como. I have that picture. You know, I have the pictures.
Yeah.
Photo albums full of them, stuff.
Yeah.
And so, you know, how many times does it take to get it?
How many times does it take?
We'll see. Time will tell. The other thing that came up that you were mentioning to Chris, and it's when you said, and I hope you can expand because I just heard it quickly, that once something, because it's all happening at one time, when you change the consciousness now, it changes the entire existence because it all is happening at once in one moment. So as I change the consciousness now, it's changed everything surrounding all that energy. And so I can see how there's things I can look back on that used to have all these hooks and all this emotion.
Can I
Yes.
stop you and help
Yes.
you? Go sit down.
Thank you.
There is natural passionate curiosity where one's mind and heart is drawn to that which it does not understand but wishes to, because behind all of that there is a nature that realizes in order to integrate and complete this need, I need to be able to see as clearly what it is that I am drawn to. Then there is, I'm drawn to something because I want to resolve something. So you have already imagined what that would be and why I need to understand this, because it would bring about something I want or long for. And then you're in the wrong story. Now it's another ending masquerading as a spiritual interest, and it's not. But all of that serves as grist for the mill as I become clearer and more awake to the movement of my own mind and what's actually going on. What's going on behind the scenes. You can't think to yourself what's going behind the scenes. You have to be right there and seeing the director, the producer, the actor, and the stage all at the same time. Then you can't be deceived about anything. You see it clearly. It's the beginning of a new understanding, which is freedom from the captivity of wanting to save myself from something I don't understand. Okay? That's all. Bye.